Well, all right, folks. David Parsons here. Welcome to 120 Months, the show where we are listening to albums put out in the 1990s, month by month. We are in April 1991. I'm here with my good friend, John Lombardo. Good to see you, John.
Good to see you too, David.
Great list.
Great list.
This is an intense list. There's a lot going on.
Shut the front door.
Yeah, right. Is that one of the albums?
No.
I think that's next month. You're getting ahead of us. Okay, so let's just get into it. What do you think?
Let's do it.
So the first album we listened to, and you being the listeners are welcome to listen in on our Spotify lists, and tell us what you think of these albums. But the first album this month is an album called Arise by the band Sepultura. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
This is a Brazilian heavy metal band. I've always heard of them, but I don't think I've ever sat and listened to an album by them before. Have you?
Oh no.
No.
I was aware of them, but once again, when this was happening, we were very siloed in our music worlds.
Right.
So this kind of thrash, speed metal, whatever you want to call it, I would not have been all that into it. I didn't, it wasn't like some music I was against, but I didn't give it a lot of listening. Sepultura, by the way, is it Portuguese or Spanish for grave?
It's Portuguese.
Is it Portuguese?
Yeah.
Because they're Brazilian, right? I would not have. I was aware of them.
You weren't a metalhead.
I was not a metalhead.
I have a friend, Peter, if you're listening. Hey, Peter. How's it going? I always ask him what he thinks of these bands because he is a metalhead. And he told me this morning, he was like, Sepultura is like the metalhead's metal band. They're like the real deal. People really, they're like highly respected in the metal world.
Let me tell you a funny story.
Mm-hmm.
So I came in, I had been out in the garage exercising, and I was listening to this record, because I listen to our records every week. And I came in the room, and my son, who was 23, said, "Who is that?" And I go, "Guess." And he sat there, and he's listening, and I said, "The record came out in 1991. And he goes, 91. Sepultura?
No way.
He totally knew about it and guessed it. Yeah.
Wow.
So they're still known with young musicians and guitar players. And
well, I'll just say what I thought of my first impression of this. It sounded like Metallica. It sounded like Pantera. It had that sort of sound to it. And yet, I liked this album better than those albums.
Really?
I enjoyed this.
Interesting.
I think that they have, so they're within, just reading about them, within that world of like a more expansive sound for metal, like a little bit more groove, a little bit more even like Latin influence, obviously, with them being Brazilian. I thought this album had a lot of rocking songs to it. It's also, though, within that genre of just like pulverizing metal that sounds like they're talking about Satan and evil stuff all the time. for those that matters to.
I feel like, and you look, part of this is probably my age, honestly.
Yeah.
It just, after a while, it all starts to sound the same to me.
Oh, yeah. I'm never going to play this again.
There's not songs here that I'm humming and thinking about, and they didn't, it didn't reach me as an artist going, what really struck me was how fast it is.
Yeah.
It's so fast. And
this falls into the Pantera category for you a little bit? Or?
It does.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, I thought Pantera was a little more interesting than Sepultura, like the opposite of you. But not interesting in terms of like lyrical content or what they were exploring, but just that. And I'll tell you why. I have a couple of ideas. First of all, I feel like this is an early Sepultura.
This is their fourth studio album,
is it four?
And they have like 15.
Then okay, so kind of early, but not that early. Not as early as I was thinking. I don't know this because I don't know the guys in Sepultura, but it sounds to me like their goal is to go as fucking fast as they can go.
Oh yeah.
And they're really good at it. And they took a thing. So in punk rock, American punk rock, there was something we call a circus beat. You know what that is? It's what enables bands to go so fast. It's just kick.
Oh yeah.
And what bands like
recognize it now.
What bands like Sepultura were doing was adding an extra beat in the foot pedal. Get that, like just that fast kick pedal,
Yeah.
and that gives it more. It does give this speed, also just a little bit of a heavy groove that is not there in a regular circus beat. It's a double kick drum that's super fast, and then
it's mind-boggling to me the how people can play, especially string instruments, guitar instruments that I've played before, so fast. Like, I don't know how you do that. Like, how you are able to flick your wrist without holding a pick.
I don't either.
And not only that, but doing it with precision.
Yeah.
Like, literally, like, they're playing, whatever scales they're playing. Yeah. It's psychotic.
It is psychotic. And they like Dimebag, Daryl.
Yeah.
This guitar player from, forget his name, the guitar player in Sepultura, they have that. They have that, like, just amazing right hand. So fast. And so I felt like, so I'm new to Sepultura. I've never sat and listened to them before. I've probably been exposed to them before, but I've never sat and listened to them before. So what the fuck do I know?
What are you supposed to do when you listen to metal? You know what I mean?
Well,
it always makes me think of Ace Ventura. Do you know when he like goes to the metal? Ace Ventura Jim Carrey goes into like a metal band. It's Cannibal Corpse actually. And they're playing just this insane, fast metal. And he just does this little dance as he's going through the crowd. And sort of like, that's how I feel. I feel like I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing to this. Whenever I see those, so I watched a really cool video of Sepultura playing some of this stuff live at the time in like 91. And the crowd is just what you expect.
Insane.
Just like angry fucking dudes that are ready to just release a lot of energy. You know what I mean? Like
I know exactly
what you mean. Scene.
In the 80s, I remember...
I was scared of those scenes.
I distinguished bands by what the pit was like at their shows.
Yeah.
Like, there were certain bands that were scarier than others.
Well, there was a whole... And this is maybe another conversation about the 90s, but there was a whole thing about, like, the mosh pit and what went on in the mosh pit. I mean, it was part of the crusade that Nirvana and eventually, like, especially, like, more, like, girl bands like Bikini Kill... and Kathleen Hanna, and they sort of attacked the mosh pit sort of mentality in part because it was so aggro and often so like experiencing physical and often and even sexual assault at these places.
Oh God, that's horrifying.
Yeah.
I have been kicked and beaten up in mosh pits,
Me too.
fallen on the ground.
Yeah.
I've been kicked and I've also seen, like, I saw a guy from Fugazi stop a show.
Yeah,
because a guy punched another guy.
Right, the Crusaders.
And he stopped the show and would not start again until the security grabbed that guy and threw him out. And he was screaming at him the whole time, going, "You shitty bully! I saw what you did. We're not playing anymore. This is the guy that..." Like, he had him thrown out for beating up a guy.
But some bands, I guess, almost promote that sort of energy.
When I saw the Misfits, one of my first, I think it was my first show ever.
That's right.
They were beating the fuck out of people with their instruments. They were playing and like cracking people on the head with their guitars. And it was violent, So
crazy.
So that I would sort of distinguish bands by their mosh pit. So it doesn't surprise me to hear that Sepultura probably had a crazy mosh pit. But another thought I have about them, listening to them, I wonder what their music would have been like if they had a singer only. Their singer plays bass.
Yeah.
And sometimes, not always, sometimes in order to do what he's doing vocally, he's playing a single note. And it loses a little bit of some of the swagger that stuff like Metallica and Pantera have.
That's interesting because we're going to hear another band, I think, that has a bassist as a singer. No, I guess not. But it's a bass heavy list.
It is.
Mike Watt, Violent Femmes.
Watt sings some of those songs.
Okay, so we're gonna get to them. But the bass, I felt like there was a bass thing going on this list.
There is, and there are exceptions to this. My favorite song on the record actually is called it's called "Criminals in Uniform," and he is singing while playing a pretty, it's a fairly complex riff. So he can do it. I'm not saying he can't do it. He's not good enough, but he just, for whatever reason, a lot of times he just goes to the single note. It's usually like an E or whatever. But he's playing really fast and singing. And I wonder if they would have had more of an infectious groove. There's a band called that, by the way.
Is it really?
Infectious Groovies. But I wonder if they would have had a more infectious groove if he were just the singer and there was someone else playing the bass who could be more like, my goal is to play the groove as fast as, because it's so fast and so it's just like, that's what they're doing here. And Metallica used to be like that too. Like they were just trying to be as gnarly
Yeah.
as they, and then they became, Metallica, I think, really separates themselves, whether you like them or not, from this pack by becoming songwriters.
Right. And they're so in the Sepultura stuff, as a singer, he's not really singing a lot of these songs.
No, just screaming.
He's like, it's a growl, scream type of thing. For me, so I've talked about this before. I'm attracted to the energy of metal, and especially when I was younger. I don't really listen to loud, crazy music like this anymore. If I'm going to listen to loud guitar stuff, it's going to be more likely to be like, I don't know, White Stripes type stuff or something like that, where it's delivering the punch in a different format. But in metal, sometimes I desire that sort of strength and power and kind of thing. But for me, the metal bands that I got into were a little bit later, that were doing something a little more arty with it, or doing something different.
Like who?
System of a Down.
Right.
It's got the Serge Tankian singing is really unique, And
They're very prog rock.
Right. And then there's a band called Mastodon.
Yeah, sure.
They're
My son listens to them.
Yeah, their lead guitarist Brent Hines was just killed in a motorcycle accident a couple months ago. And he was an animal of a guitar player, but the stuff that they did was really thematic and melodramatic, and like they have a whole themes, concepts to their albums. Like they had one that was just entirely about Moby Dick. They're just singing about whales and boats the whole time.
So
that's
maybe
cool.
it's your literary love that
something interesting
pulls
other than
that
just
to
the
you.
pulverizing row.
Because I have the same thing. Like the metal bands that I really like are like I love Iron Maiden,
Right.
Sabbath, and they're not just singing about dark death, hell. In fact, I think Iron Maiden, one of the things that they're not recognized for is that they write music that is theatrically relevant to what they're singing about. Like Power Slave has a riff that sounds Egyptian. Where Eagles Dare, there's a whole middle section of that song that sounds like there's a World War II battle happening with machine guns and stuff. They really did a great job of bringing up a theatrical element to what they're talking about. And of
that
course,
makes sense.
Steve
with their
Harris
shows and everything. Yeah.
The bass player Steve Harris writes the lyrics, and he's obviously he writes about he writes about poetry and space and the future and all kinds of interesting things.
This makes sense then why my friend Peter would say this is like the metalheads metal band,
sure.
Because metalheads, as we've discussed, they're looking for the pure hit of the like the rage and the speed.
It's
and
a
certain
very
thing. Yeah.
It's a one note of energy.
Yeah.
And it's a high energy. And I'm not saying there's anything you need to do this in your life. I grew out of that quite young.
Yeah.
I wasn't looking for that in the art form of music anymore when I was quite young. But for some people, I know tons of people. You know what punk rock bowling is?
No.
Punk rock bowling happens every year in Vegas. I used to play it back in like 2007. It's gotten huge. There's a bunch of people my age and older that are still going there, spiking their hair, what's left of their hair, wearing black clothes. Like they're still really
Who am I
into
to judge,
it.
man? I don't care what people like. I'm just saying I'm not into it.
But they have a song in here called Orgasmatron.
Yes.
And it's written in a pop structure. It's 1/4, and he's still, it's not, it's funny to hear them play like a slower pop format. It's not pop, but it's like a pretty standard rock format song.
They're fucking talented dudes, and I know this band and this particular album is a classic within the genre.
Standout song for me is Murder.
Yeah, to me it was Arise. I think that the title track.
Yeah.
That's the one I watched the video of, and I thought like he talks to the crowd in the way that you might expect. He's like, "All right, motherfuckers, who's ready to fucking rise?" And the crowd's just going nuts. They have fans that are fucking loving this shit.
And it's really cool with just to wrap it up. I think it's wonderful what they accomplished. It wasn't easy to be a Brazilian metal band.
Probably not.
But
I think people down there are into this shit.
They're into it.
Yeah.
But Sepultura didn't just make it down there.
Yeah.
They made it all over the world, and they had to really work hard and be committed. And I respect what they accomplished.
There's a desire clearly for hard music, but from a huge crowd. I think it was Limp Bizkit, who I think will appear at the later end of this show.
Unfortunately, you're right. Yes.
Yeah. They played, I think, one of the biggest concerts ever in Brazil last year. and playing just that, their hard riffs and shit like that.
I
think people love the riffs and the energy of Limp Bizkit more than they love anything else. It's just sort of like the medium is the message, if that makes sense.
Maybe
with metal.
Yeah. And in the context of the 90s, this music was no more or less popular in the 90s. Like, it didn't explode like alternative music did, but it also didn't go down. It didn't disappear like new wave did.
It's always been kind of a subculture.
It's its own thing. It's totally its own
That's
scene.
why Metallica is divisive, because they're like, the underground
Sellouts.
does the mainstream.
Yeah.
Like, not everybody loves them. And like when they cut their hair in the mid 90s, it was like a big deal.
Was it?
Yeah. People were really upset about it. It was like they betrayed the cause of being, long hair metal dudes.
That's great.
Okay, so let's go to our next album for April 1991. This is from one of my favorite bands.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Great.
This band is called Violent Femmes, and this album is called Why Do Birds Sing? Yeah. And it's got a lot of songs that I recognized on it, but I will say, before I hear what you have to think about this, John, let me tell you what I think.
Here we go.
Yeah. Well, honestly, all I would say about Violent Femmes is that they're always a welcome sound to me, and their sound is very them. Like, Gordon Gano's singing is we've talked about character in voices, and like how some voices that we've listened to have not. Sorry, Paul Westerberg. We're always talking about him. His voice doesn't really pop in the same way that Gordon Gano's does. And what I mean is not necessarily who's the better singer, but it's just the character of the voice. And like, to me, Gordon Gano's voice is iconic, and always sounds like them. But I wonder what you think about this. If you took away the voice and just played the Violent Femmes instrumental, would you still be able to identify it as Violent Femmes? I think I would. Yeah,
you would.
Yeah,
they're one of those bands. We've talked about this a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a lot going for them, but everyone in the band is indispensable.
Yeah.
There's nobody. You couldn't do the Violent Femmes without the bass player. What's his name?
He plays an upright bass, right? A lot of the time.
He plays. Sometimes it's an upright, but he also has a fretless.
Okay, that makes sense.
Hollow body that he holds like a guitar, and he plays it with a pick, and he fucking manhandles it. Like, it's such a strong part of their sound.
Yeah, the bass is really
and it's
a
busy.
big part of who they are.
He does something that is very hard to do. And it's easy. It's easier for him to do because the other two instruments are so simple.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you listen to Rush, Alex Lifeson is the guy laying he's playing just mostly chords, and he does, of course, solos, but he's playing a lot of rhythm-oriented guitar so that Geddy can be busy. Geddy Lee can be busy on the bass. Same thing here. This guy's a very busy bass player, and it works. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's easy to do. I think a lot of times I've been in a lot of bands and played with a lot of musicians, and one of the things that kills it is if the rhythm section is too busy and you don't know how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you might know how to play those runs and those drum fills, but if you can't make them tastefully fit into what the song is, it doesn't sound good.
Right.
And this guy can just do it. They have this wild abandon that they live in. The snares, the guy's playing really, usually he just has a snare, I think. And he doesn't have a full kit, Sometimes he plays with a full kit, but they were so. And you weren't around when this happened, but in '83, when their first record came out, "Blister in the Sun" and "Added Up," they were an instant sensation in underground music. They were hugely popular in underground music. James Honeyman Scott of the Pretenders found them busking on the street.
What are the qualities that you think made that happen? Because one of the things that I love about doing this podcast with you is listening to this. When bands like this come up that I've always loved, it makes me think a little bit more of like, well, what do I really love about them? Like, why do Violent Femmes hit for me in a way that Sepultura does not? And for me, it's a lot of things, but one of them is something we've mentioned. There's humor here. And they're playing with humor in a very kind of like snotty, sort of subversive way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the humor is funny, but it's also dark. And I that's appealing to me. But also, just I don't know. There's something about their sound. What is it? What do you think it is that people find so attractive about Violent Femmes?
There are a number of things I would say. First of all, you might there are probably fans of Sepultura saying, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah,
right?
no, totally.
So-
That's what I'm investigating. Why
so
do
that
I
is-
like this more than I like the others?
A lot of people like this, you
Yeah.
know. And I love Violent Femmes too. I think they're a treasure. I don't think there's anybody else like them
Yeah,
ever. You
me
know?
neither.
They're like a hootenanny on LSD. You know what I mean?
Totally.
It's like this. I wrote in my notes. This is like bluegrass for angry scumbags. I love it. It's got this almost bluegrass hootenanny, simple countryish feel.
yeah.
But it's played with an urgency and a frenetic energy that is kind of got a punk rock feel to it.
It's a sensibility.
It's very raw. There's a rawness to it, and then lyrically, he is humorous. He lives in his own voice unapologetically, and he has a weird voice. He makes it work. Lyrically, he's very confessional and yet poetic, and he draws you in. For me, we joke all the time about that Cowboys from Hell is about Cowboys from Hell. I am always drawn to music that has lyrics where I have to come in and figure it out a little bit and try to understand it.
You know what makes me realize what won me over when I was young is I got an album of theirs and it had that song that's like, "Come on, Dad, give me the car tonight." You know that song?
Yeah.
And I remember being like drawn into the storytelling of it, but also feeling like the edge of it. I thought this is dangerous. This feels like he plays characters in his songs.
Exactly.
And
it's like theater.
Yeah, and it often feels like I don't know what he's gonna say. Like they have a country murder song that's like literally just a guy talking about killing his family, and it's just like it's on like I think it's on like the extra tracks of this album. But that song is just kind of like a perfect example of how I feel about so much of Violent Femmes music. Even Blister in the Sun, their biggest hit, is a song that's like kind of gross and kind of weird and feels kind of like you shouldn't be talking about this or hearing
He's talking about being strung out, and I think he's talking about jerking off, right? Like staying in my sheets.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. He's fearless, and you're right. He lives in his characters. He's like that. And my favorite artist of all time, probably Tom Waits, does that.
Totally.
He becomes these characters in his song, and now Tom Waits does this to an extreme, to a much higher level. But Gordon Gano does that a little bit. He becomes these characters, and he's just so authentically who he is as an artist. He's not trying to be anything. Obviously, what do they sound like? They don't sound like pop music in the 80s when they came out.
I don't even know
they
how
don't
to
sound
describe them.
They're not punk. They're not alternative. They're just this crazy group of guys that play really well together.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can really explain what the magic of them is, but the magic is there. And I'm going to say something right now that is going to piss off a lot of people.
Please. I love what you do.
To my
there.
ears,
Yeah.
Violent Femmes are way heavier than Sepultura.
What do you mean by that?
So to me, heavy isn't about what you're hearing. It's about where it hits you in here. They and I could say this about any band with heavy guitars. I'm just talking about Sepultura because we're talking about them this week. I think Violent Femmes are heavier or as heavy as a lot of those bands like Metallica and shit like that, because the energy with which they play their instruments, the way it hits you, the rawness of it. I was banging my head harder to the midsection of Girl Trouble than I did on anything on Sepultura's album.
Right.
I think the way they perform, the music hits you in a way that is heavy. It's the way the lyrics work, the way the bass is being played, the energy that the snare drum creates. And look, if you've got four Marshalls, two guitar players, they each have four Marshalls and a fucking double kick drum kit and a singer, heavy's a little easier. But with a snare drum, an acoustic guitar, and a guy with whatever bass he's playing, I don't think it's easy to be heavy. That's like these guys are taking this tiny instrument and beating the shit out of you with it. Yeah. Like this tiny hammer and beating the shit out of you with it. Well, and I think they're heavier.
Yeah, I love this definition of heavy too, in terms of like what really is heavy. Because by your sort of standard here, I would say like Leonard Cohen sort of singing with just a light acoustic guitar can be heavy as shit.
Fuck yeah.
Because the voice and the poetry of it, he hits you hard. And there are times where I'm like, he's revealing truths about the depths of my soul here that are never touched by bands that would be considered much heavier just in terms of their sound.
I've seen so many punk bands and you know, a lot of rock bands. I've seen a lot of bands in my life. One of the heaviest artists I've ever seen is PJ Harvey.
Yeah, right. Oh, dude, yeah.
She's a fucking animal.
Well, we're gonna get
and
to
that
PJ
guitar
Harvey
is
at
as some
some
big
point.
as her, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway,
it's attitude. It's also like there's something scary about Violent Femmes. You know what I mean? Like when I hear them, I'm like, I know exactly what you mean. They're sort of tapping into, weirdly, they're tapping into subconscious fears and anxieties and ideas that are present there, and they're getting at it from a different angle than just the big giant electric guitar distortion.
And I'll say another thing. This is a taste thing.
Yeah.
But I'm more interested in that confessional, very vulnerable, open. I'm going to talk about jacking off, and I'm going to talk about how stupid I look, and I'm going to talk about how I feel insecure around girls. That's more powerful and ballsy than just singing over and over again about die Satan. Die. Like that's subterfuge. It's easy to hide behind. This is tough because we've got skulls, and you know, it's just, to me, it's not as interesting.
Right. Yeah. I love that. That's great. I mean, are Violent Femmes a punk band to you?
They have not at all. They don't sound punk rock at all. Although, if you want to hear what they sound like as a punk band, they're a song
sort of underground though. They don't feel like
they have a song called "Life Is a Scream" on this record, and they play it like a band.
Yeah.
So if you want to know what they sound like as a punk band, they sound like the Stooges a little bit. Like it's pretty cool. They had a hit song, a kind of a hit song in the 80s. They remade a T-Rex song called "Children of the Revolution." Have you heard that song? You won't change the children of the revolution.
Yeah.
They remade that song, and it was kind of a hit for them. And they played it much more like a traditional band than they normally sound.
They sound like they can do a lot.
They're very versatile, but to me, like my standout song on this record, "Lack of Knowledge." That sounds like a classic Violent Femmes song. There's a guy going on the snare, and there's a bass player going, you know, like just beating the shit out of that acoustic bass, and then Gordon Gano strumming an acoustic guitar real fast and going, you know, like this desperate, frantic, damaged, crackly voice that makes you go, ooh. You know, I think they're beautiful. I love them.
I loved the "Do You Really Want to Hurt Me?" the Boy George Culture Club cover.
So good.
Is such a cool cover. Loved it.
Listen to this.
Very surprising.
Fucking A.
Yeah.
That's a great song.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the Culture Club version.
Totally.
I used to, you know, I used to have to sing that song in a band I was in Vegas. I like that song a lot. We did that song in Karma Chameleon, and I think that's a better song. Do You Really Want to Hurt Me? A little bit.
Totally.
So it's already a really good song. I think the Violent Femmes made it better.
Yeah.
They made it more interesting. Very rare that you do that. You take a song, a great song that an original artist recorded, and you make it better and more interesting. And they managed to do that.
I agree. This is an awesome album.
Crazy.
And this is not one of their classic albums. I mean, the only big hit that anyone would know that's kind of a casual listener to Violent Femmes is the first track, American Music. Do you like American music?
It's
super
just
fun.
a 1 1 4 4 5. You know, I hear Bob Dylan in him a little bit too.
Yeah, totally.
Like, and
they're geniuses, man. I fucking love Violent Femmes.
I think I would be interested to ask this question to this person. You know who I think he was a big influence on? Black Francis of the Pixies.
Yeah.
He does a lot of stuff that I go, oh, that sounds like Gordon Gano of Violent Femmes. I think the way Gordon Gano's not afraid to go, oh, I hurt so bad. You know, like he just kind of lets the thing take him over for a minute and doesn't worry about singing anymore. I think Black Francis does that a little bit. I wonder how much he influences him.
Well, I have tickets to see Violent Femmes. I've never seen them before at the Majestic Ventura Theater.
Aren't I going with you to that?
I think so, yeah. Very much looking forward to that.
Sweet.
Okay, so let's move on. Other albums coming out in April 91. Now, 91 is the year that, quote unquote, like grunge music, the Seattle sound really breaks in the mainstream. We are still sitting here waiting for, within a couple months, we'll be recording an episode talking about Nevermind, the Nirvana album coming out, which dropped like a nuclear bomb at some point in pop culture. But there are precursors, and this is an album that is a major precursor, very well known. It's by a band called Temple of the Dog. The album is called Temple of the Dog. And this album connects to a conversation we had a few months ago, John, last year, when we were talking about the band Mother Love Bone, the fact that the lead singer of Mother Love Bone, Andrew Wood, died basically days after or before their only album was released, and that the band members of Mother Love Bone sort of splintered off, and we already told that story, but it's related to Pearl Jam and Soundgarden. And this album, Temple of the Dog, is an album made by Chris Cornell, and Eddie Vedder is in there doing backup vocals, and a lot of members of both Pearl Jam and Soundgarden. So Stone Gossard, Jeff Ament, and Mike McCready are all present on this album. And I've never listened to this. I only know this album from the song Hunger Strike, which was a huge hit, and was a big video on MTV too. And it was, I think Hunger Strike must have been my introduction to Chris Cornell and Eddie Vedder especially. This was a journey of discovery for me to listen to this album, the rest of the songs.
The album came out.
It's a tribute to Andrew Wood, basically.
Most of it is, yeah. The album came out before Pearl Jam. The reason this album started getting a lot of radio play and a lot of video play was because 10 became a big hit.
Right.
It had already been released and it wasn't heavily promoted. So I have a lot to say about this record. I
bet you do.
I didn't spend a lot of time on this record. So when we talked about this before, Jeff from Ament, the bass player from Pearl Jam, came on and alluded to the fact that I'd gotten some things very wrong.
Commented on our Instagram. Because, so for those that don't follow our Instagram page, I don't know why you're not. Maybe you're not on Instagram. That's probably good for you, honestly. But we post a lot of little videos of that are short clips from this very podcast you're listening to now. And we put up one that was John talking about Mother Love Bone and giving basically the history of Mother Love Bone and Andrew Wood and that sort of thing. And it went so big, and I'm talking like at this point I think there are 600,000 views or something like that. When a video goes that big, viral, it means you get a lot of comments that are just sort of random all over the place. I mean, thousands of comments. But what was sort of surprising to, I think, both of us, is we got comments from people in some of these bands that were like, and Jeff Ament, who is
the bass player
both of these
bands. Pearl Jam and Temple of the Dog,
jumped in and was like, I guess you had to be there. This isn't accurate at all.
He accused me of Joe Rogan level inaccuracies, which I appreciate it.
Such a deep insult.
I wasn't there,
yeah.
So he knows better than me. I'm not going to argue with Jeff. He was, but I was playing music at that time, and I was in Seattle a lot at that time. And then we were managed by someone who also managed a band called Love Battery, and Bruce Fairweather of Mother Love Bone was the guitar player and one of the singers, I think, in Love Battery. I hope I'm not getting that wrong. Now, I didn't know Bruce well.
We'll hear from Jeff Ament if you got it wrong. Yeah,
we've played some shows with them, but yeah, Jeff, please chime in. So I took that to heart. Like, I don't want to be out there spreading bullshit. I think one of the things I really got wrong in that one was I said that Matt Cameron had brought Eddie Vedder into the fold. That's not accurate. I went back and tried to get my shit together. And so,
to me, none of these inaccuracies were fatal to the main story we're telling here, which is that Andrew Wood's death sort of shuffled around the band Mother Love Bone and ended up with the creating Pearl Jam.
The point we were trying to make in that conversation was how incredibly influential Mother Love Bone was on the 90s music scene, but not because of the music they created. Not to take anything away from the music they created, but it was not super popular music, but it spawned these other things that were. So this album, Andrew Wood and Chris Cornell were roommates.
Right.
And so Cornell, what had happened with this album was, and this one I know is true because I watched Cornell and Jeff Ament and Mike McCready talk about it. So their management team, Kelly Curtis and Susan Silver, had a tape. Cornell had recorded a couple of songs about Andrew Wood. And I think it was Say Hello to Heaven and what's the other one? The other one is Reach Down, I think it's called. So he'd recorded these two songs, and she gave their managers gave the tape to the guys in Mother Love Bone, Jeff Ament and Stone Gossard, and Mike McCready. They had already kind of gone through the tough parts, and they'd found Mike McCready, and Eddie Vedder they were rehearsing for what would become Pearl Jam. And she gave them this tape, and they thought it was cool. And Chris was like, "We should record these songs for Andrew Wood." And then so they all came together, and there's more story to it. I shouldn't be the one to tell that story, but
have you listened to this record before?
Not really.
Yeah.
And so what happened for the hunger strike? They were in the studio, or not in the studio. I'm sorry. They were rehearsing it, and Chris Cornell was singing that "I go hungry,"
Yeah.
I don't mind stealing bread, and Eddie was sitting there, and they kept doing it, and he was like, they thought maybe he was writing in a pad or something, like in the corner, and he got up and just walked over and started going, "I don't mind stealing bread," and they were like, "Oh, you should sing on this." It was very organic, according to them, what they said. And so that's how he became involved with the record. They made the whole record. They wrote some new songs. And Cornell, this is going to be important, what I want to say about this record. Chris Cornell said, "I had some other songs. They just didn't feel like Soundgarden songs." So they brought those in, and they played them, and it became the record. And I did not pay a lot of attention to this record when it came out. When it came out. Okay. I thought you were saying this week I could never get into it. It wasn't a big hit album, and that single was really like, it was more about like that single. I don't think the record got properly promoted ever. The single, like I said, they started playing it on MTV and playing on the radio because Pearl Jam had this huge
Ironically, their
hit.
other bands overshadowed all of this.
And but they also drove it. They caused it to become resurrected. It's like when you see some movie like Russell Crowe makes Gladiator, and all of a sudden this movie he made 3 years before gets a release.
Yes,
because
I always thought Temple of the Dog was just some side project these guys were doing. Like, you know what I mean? I didn't realize that this was sort of predated.
Predated those things. So Tin becomes really popular, and then shortly after that, Soundgarden started to get very popular too. I think it was Super Unknown. Am I wrong? It might have been. I don't think Louder Than Love had any big hits on it. But I think Super Unknown was one that had like, Shine Down, Outshine. Sorry, not Shine Down. Whoa, back up. It had Outshined and Jesus Christ Pose and Rusty Cage. Like those were both those bands started to really rise up.
I didn't realize Cornell was such a songwriter that he wrote all of the lyrics to this Temple of the Dog album. What did you think of the music?
I actually really dig this record.
Yeah,
Chris. Fans will agree with me, like that. Chris Cornell is maybe the greatest rock singer of all time, in the way I'm going to say that there is no weakness. He can do it all. He's got perfect pitch. He's got falsetto. He's got a scream you can't match. He can go all the way up, and he's got control. He can sing low and soft with emotion. He's got it all, and nobody has it all like that except him. Nobody has like him. And
I would say Freddie Mercury is frowning upon you from heaven right now.
So even Freddie, go listen to this. When he gets up in those real high notes, he gets a little wild and crazy. Cornell doesn't. Now, Freddie is probably the greatest showman of all time.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm adding a lot of different elements because like Freddie's particular. The way he embodied a kind of tough but vulnerable masculinity is something that I think is just so powerful.
For sure. Yeah. And he is full blown. He's 100% masculine and feminine energy.
Cornell doesn't perform in the same way.
That's what I'm saying.
Sings.
Freddie's a showman, the greatest showman of all time.
Cornell actually seems like a shy person in a weird way.
I'm sure he was. I never met him, but I'm sure he was, and he seems like he did not seem to embrace stardom. I
don't know if you've ever listened to interviews with Chris Cornell, but there's I think it was the Mark Maron interview where I listened to him for an hour and a half just tell his story, and I was like, I'd never really known who he was at all. I never really heard his voice besides the singing voice, and I was sort of just shocked, and I found very, very charmed by him. I thought he seemed like a regular dude.
Well, that's
he seemed like a really earnest guy.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
You're a heterosexual.
Yeah.
Did you still kind of want to fuck him? That's another thing. He's so fucking gorgeous.
Appealing. Yeah.
He's so calm and good look, like
Yeah.
fucking supermodel good looks, and
There's
he can just do it all.
heterosexual, but there's a Kinsey scale, as you know, John.
And
I
he
mean,
can-
there are degrees of
I'm
this.
telling you,
Yeah.
man. I a couple of times I watched Chris Cornell.
I think you've mentioned how much you want to fuck Chris Cornell a few times on this show already. This
Have
is a
I
running,
really?
This is a running theme for you. I bet you have a poster of him on your wall somewhere. Yeah. Do you prefer him with the shorter hair or the longer hair?
Yes.
He never looks better than an audio slave. I love him.
He
in
looks
that.
just amazing, you know. But then you take all those things I said he can do, right?
Yeah.
And then you add in the songwriting.
Yeah.
Like Robert Plant is just a fucking beast. Nobody's ever sounded like him before or since. Lyrically, squeeze my lemon, and so Cornell just doesn't have any weaknesses. And if I'm not, he had one. But I'm not going to tell you what it is because we're going to talk about this when we talk about Soundgarden.
Okay,
but
we'll get to that. But
however much attention Chris Cornell gets, I think he deserves 3 times more. I think that in many ways he is one of, if not the greatest meat and potatoes classic rock and roll singer. There's great singers who have their own thing they do. Like Chrissy Hines, one of my favorite singers of all time. She makes it work for herself. But in terms of being able to have all the things a great rock singer needs, he ticks every box.
Yeah. And one thing that I would say about this album, besides just like hearing, I love the creativity and groove of all the instruments here. You can tell that these guys have a lot of ideas, like riff ideas, ideas for the music. This album is most known for being a kind of blueprint for what grunge is going to be, what the Seattle sound is going to be. And if I was trying to think about what does that really mean to me, I think that a lot of it has to do with the sensibility of Chris Cornell's lyrics. Like the lyrics in this on this album are about, a lot of them kind of seem about being down and out and being outcast. There are songs that are overtly about heroin use. I think
sure.
Times of Trouble is he's talking about heating up a
spoon and the needle.
And all that kind of shit. And that's what killed Andrew Wood. So heroin is kind of the cliche of the Seattle sound in some ways, but it's not really about, it's not the heroin so much as it is about the kind of the sensibility of remove. There's a lot of theorists of the 90s are going to talk about postmodernism a lot in culture. Like Pulp Fiction is a prime example where culture seems self-aware all of a sudden.
Yeah.
It seems like it's reflecting on itself. Mm-hmm. And it feels like this music is, rooted in the old, metal and glam rock stuff that these guys were raised listening to, classic rock in the 70s and 80s. And yet they're a new generation. You can hear the youth, you can hear their position, you can hear them sort of reflecting a little bit on what it means to be a rock star, or what it means to be doing the all night thing is the last song on this album. I don't know. I think it's something that we'll see develop over the course of this podcast as we listen to more of these grunge albums, and I want to sort of mark it now that there's some sort of like self-awareness and self-criticism that's entering into the mix in a way that wasn't there in Van Halen and things like that. Yeah.
We've talked about this before, but the Seattle sound is not a punk rock sound.
No.
It's informed by the punk rock attitude and ethos, like the work ethic, the do-it-yourself, the ethos of punk rock and the work ethic. It's informed by that, but it's really rooted in classic rock.
Sounds like
Sabbath
Led Zeppelin.
and Zeppelin.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But they grab a little bit of that punk rock magic and then jump to something new, and that is totally driven by the songwriters.
Their attitudes.
But it's the songwriting. They're doing classic rock, but big riff classic rock, but there's a self-effacing desperation and an introspection to it that becomes very popular. It moves, rock music in the 80s moves from a hedonistic fucking, girls, check me out, look how badass I am, to, cherry pie, to I'm struggling and suffering and I'm broken.
You know what it is? It's kind of like moving from the party to the hangover.
To the hangover.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the feeling of waking up the day after getting really fucked up. That's what grunge captures to me. We talked about this with the Johnny Cash Sunday Morning Coming Down. A song that really captures that lost feeling we've all felt if you've ever gotten fucked up on drugs or alcohol, you know what the morning after can feel like. It's a lonely place. It's a dark place. It's a self-reflective and hateful place. And it feels like these guys inhabit that a lot.
The only flaw in that analogy is I don't think these guys were even at that party. They weren't at the strip club the night before.
Right.
They weren't even there.
They're just their lives are the hangover.
I saw Pearl Jam. I went to the Cow Palace New Year's Eve in 1991, going into 92, to see the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Cow Palace in San Francisco. And 2 bands were opening up for them that I hardly knew about. Pearl Jam and Nirvana. It was a crazy thing, and I'll talk about this when we talk about Nirvana because it was a crazy experience. But I first saw Nirvana in December 31st, 1991. But the opening band, Pearl Jam, I went, oh, how weird. They got a glam band open for them. They had like cowboy hats with feathers and boots, and they were still kind of trying to do that. And it's the same thing if you watch old Alice in Chains music videos. They were still kind of glammy. It's Lane Staley that pulls them to this other place. It's Eddie Vedder who pulls Pearl Jam out of that sort of glammy known rock thing into this alternative world with, from the very get-go, Eddie's in a flannel and shorts. He's not doing that thing. So the songwriters, Cornell too, Cornell, Eddie Vedder, Kurt Cobain certainly, Mark Lanigan, Mark Arm. These guys drove that. The songwriters drove that group of people into that very specific type of Seattle sound. I don't like to call it grunge because that was kind of some bullshit thing that the press came up with, but there was a Seattle sound, and it was grungy, and it was dirgy, and it was slow, churning, heavy. But it was very introspective. It was very sensitive. It was vulnerable, and it was about, I am broken, and I'm going to talk about how broken I am.
Yeah. It's a cool album.
Really good album.
Do you have a standout song?
I did have a standout song, and I also really quickly just want to say, real quick, I'm so glad we listened to this record before we listened to 10.
Yeah.
Because
I think that's coming up in a couple months here.
I am not in
June 91, I think.
The Pearl Jam that I'm super familiar with, and there's another band called Mad Season that we're going to listen to. I'm not another super group with Lane Staley and Mike McCready. But I'm super familiar with the first 3 Pearl Jam albums. And to me, Mike McCready's the weak link. I don't like his guitar playing. And I've always heard he's a great guy. I've never met him, but I don't like saying that. But it's just, for me, he's very pentatonic scales, very boring, boogie-woogie, predictable. I love his guitar playing on this record. He's got a Hendrix thing.
That's what I was saying. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed the sound of this album.
But particularly him.
Yeah.
The guitar playing is interesting. More
so
interesting.
What happened?
Well, same thing with Cornell, dude. When you write differently with different groups of people. Cornell's not writing like he writes in Soundgarden. He wrote some really cool songs that he's right, they wouldn't have worked in Soundgarden. Man, my band, when I got out of my band, I wrote a bunch of songs I wouldn't have written with that band. You grew up in that band, and you're sort of like this gang, and you got this thing you're trying to do, and you don't want to be true to who the band is.
Yeah.
And sometimes you feel like that idea is too outside of what we are, And
that's what happens with Radiohead and The Smile, actually, is that Johnny Greenwood of Radiohead really wanted to do some different stuff with Radiohead. And Tom York was, from what I understand, Tom York is much more sort of controlling of what's a Radiohead song and what's not, this is what we do, and we can't go outside of that. So they said, why don't we just fucking do a side project? And you realize the side project is basically the same guys. They got a different drummer. But I'm like, okay, so they just call it something different, and now we're free to experiment a little.
I always felt that way about Perfect Circle. Like, why? Yeah. This sounds exactly like
I know, right?
Tool
it
soft.
Seems like it's
Tool.
something you're talking about, though. It's like it's a trick for the writers to kind of think, okay, this is a different project now. We don't. In other words, you can get stuck in a box.
Yeah, and so I love McCready's playing. You can hear, Stone. A couple of these things, I don't know who wrote them, but Stone Gossard. Stone Gossard is really the guy who writes the most memorable riffs in early Pearl Jam. He's a really interesting songwriter in terms of the chords and riffs that he writes. And then you can hear Jeff Ament here a couple times. There's a song on here, Four Walled World, that fretless. Jeff Ament always plays a fretless bass. And it's very much a part of Pearl Jam's sound, believe it or not. But Matt Cameron, to me, is the fucking man on this record. His drumming is so fucking good. Yeah. He's Soundgarden's drummer. He's always great. He's one of my favorite drummers, and I really enjoyed listening to him play drums on this record.
Did you say your standout song? Did I miss it?
Did you know these guys came back and toured in 2016?
I had no idea.
Yeah. So yeah, Pushing Forward Back was my standout song. If I never heard any music after 1988, if you took me back in a time machine in 1990 and played Pushing Forward Back for me, I would go, who the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
It just rocks.
Yeah.
And Cornell, to me, that's one of those moments. He sounds like nobody can touch him to me. He's so good. He's such a great singer.
I agree. Listening to this album, I felt like I was in the hands of guys that knew what they were doing.
Yes.
You know, one way or the other. And it's not an album that I'll probably often return to, although there are a couple songs that I thought were really cool, including the it's very surprising 11-minute second song. I didn't realize they were going to do it. Yeah, like a 12-minute jam.
That was one of the first songs he recorded the two songs and he played all the instruments on them. Chris,
cool.
You know, Chris Cornell was the drummer in Soundgarden originally. Remember?
Yeah. He tells that story on the interview I listened to, in which he said, you know, since he was the drummer, he felt like he had to sing really loud when they asked him to sing a couple songs. Like he wasn't their singer of whatever band they were doing, and he's like, so I felt like I had to kind of scream to get like the voice to carry over the sound of the drums. And in doing that, he's like, I discovered the power that I had. And I'm like, that's really interesting.
I heard him say once, he goes, I just kept trying to find the top and it didn't come.
It makes me wonder if like there are people that are out there that have never like attempted to do that and have that power.
For sure.
Like, wow, they could actually fucking belt.
But not as many of those as there are people who think they can do it.
Oh my God.
And are out there doing it and shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. Well, we're going to the Grape
Hear
tonight.
me, Anthony Kiedis?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
there have been some singers at the Grape, our local jazz club lately, that have gotten up and just screamed, and it's sort of like I need a little subtlety, especially in jazz, dude. Like jazz to me is a kind of like crooner thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
It's not about the huge belt. Okay. So let's move on to another album that came out in April 91 by a band called Crash Test Dummies. This album is called The Ghosts That Haunt Me. This is their debut album. They are Canadian, which I think explains a lot. When I found out they were Canadian, I was like, oh, okay.
It really does.
This makes total sense because the Crash Test Dummies, for those that are, again, casual 90s music listeners, you might know one song from them, which is that song, which is literally the title of the song. But he's got, the lead singer of this band has a very particular affect to his voice.
He does.
You know, he's singing in a way that almost sounds like he's a joke a little bit, you know?
Right.
And they've got a lot of humor. And, you know, I was thinking about them with the Violent Femmes, because, like, what makes them so different from Violent Femmes? Because Violent Femmes are so much better than Crash Test Dummies, I think. But Crash Test Dummies are doing, like, a folk rock thing with a little bit of humor and a little bit of, like, literary thing going on. Like, they're smart. You know, they're smart references and stuff like that. I should have liked this album more than I did. I found a lot of it. I thought a lot of it was kind of corny. And I think that I would have maybe liked it a little bit better if I'd heard it in the 90s when I was younger. Does that make sense?
Yeah. We're going to talk about them later because they are going to have a big hit.
Huge hit.
So I don't want to spend too much time on it. But this sounds like there was a lot of this kind of music in the late 80s. Like this sort of acoustic folk pop that was really popular in college. You know, frat boy pop kind of, you know. It's like college music. I think that this was their first record, right?
Yes.
I think if they had come out in like 86, they would have been more popular.
They sounded like a lot of other stuff to me. They sounded a little bit, honestly, and this is a compliment to them. They reminded me some of their songs of like 10,000 Maniacs.
10,000 Maniacs. Toad the Wet Sprocket.
Yes.
That's that late 80s.
Sort of earthy, funny, acoustic
folk pop.
But it's sort of touching in its own way. Like there's something sentimental about a lot of these songs.
He's not a bad lyricist.
No. Every song has something interesting about it.
He has a very strange tone.
Yes.
He chews the vowels. Like there's a song like Frank Sinatra used to when he got older. There's a song called The Voyage, and we could go to the Scottish Highlands. We could hike around the British Islands. You know, like he chews the vowels. This served them well, I think. He also has he says his A's. Like hey going to and there's almost like what we call chin rock in my day. We joked around about it like a like singing out the side of your mouth.
Yeah, right.
Like he has that tone. the band sounds.
Sammy Davis Jr. This is all Rat Pack references here.
if I brought up Sammy, I did not mean to do that.
Yeah.
It's like singing out like a feeling like a the vowels are here it's a
birthmarks all over her body.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
sound. Yeah, I always found there's something really funny about it, but it doesn't carry a band to me like the whole.
The band sounds very 80s, but his affect and it almost feels put on to me sometimes. He does this very odd thing in his low register I never heard a singer do before, but it's cool, he can do it. And but other than beyond that, they're just like really generic guitar pop, like Hootie and the Blowfish with a violin and an accordion.
Fuck, man! Now that you bring up Hootie the Blowfish, I forgot that they're gonna dominate in the '90s.
Oh my God.
They when they came out, I remember, and we'll get to them, but I remember when Hootie the Blowfish came out. The first time I saw them was on VH1, of course, not MTV. And it was "Hold My Hand," that song, and they were the vision of them in the house, the sunny house playing. I was like, ooh, this is like the end of the grunge. I think the opposite of what grunge is. There's something, the attitude is so fucking different, dude.
So different, but they were huge. And then same with Spin Doctors. Like there were these bands that were flying in the face of grunge and having hit songs. But even Darius Rucker, the lead singer of Hootie and the Blowfish, he has like I'm gonna love you the best that I can.
Yeah.
He's kind of doing like that. He still had that 90s sound a little bit. And this guy,
it makes sense that he became a country singer, actually.
Yeah, it sure does.
Yeah.
So, but this guy does that a little bit. And then he also has like, forgive me, this is kind of cruel, but he sounds like he's doing a bad Nick Cave or Peter Murphy of Bauhaus impersonation.
Yeah.
Totally. But it's kind of interesting.
There's Crash Test Dummies have always been sort of charming to me. I've always sort of pulled for them and thought like, oh, this is my kind of stuff. But listening to this album, it was sort of minor for me. It felt that way.
It's like far less interesting Dave Matthews Band.
Yeah. And Dave Matthews Band isn't that interesting to begin with.
But they're great players.
Right.
Fucking what's the drummer's name of Dave Matthews Band? I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm not gonna forget. This guy's one of the greatest fucking drummers of all time. So, and he's got a great band. These guys are not
Carter
Beauford. That's him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, they've got they're good players. I didn't mean to shit on Dave Matthews. I just don't know them that well.
They have a song called they have a song called Irish on here. It's a remake, and they got like tin whistle on it and stuff. But no, it's not a remake. I'm sorry. But they have this cool tin whistle thing and the Irish flute.
Well, did you notice that there's a Paul Westerberg song, Replacements cover?
Androgynous.
Yeah.
They covered Androgynous by the Replacements. This is a song. It's a great song, and they fucking ruined it. Seriously, the cover's fucking horrible. I mean, it's done respect. I get that they probably respect Westerberg, but the song is on an album called Let It Be. And Westerberg, it's just Westerberg playing piano.
1984.
Yeah. And it's just Paul Westerberg playing a piano and singing the song. Love each other so androgynous.
A song about gender non-conforming couple well ahead of its time.
Cross-dressing and transgenderism and well ahead of its time. And I just wanted to say congratulations, Crash Test Dummies, for making Androgynous sound like a Christmas song. It was just, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But I like the ballads on this song best, like At My Funeral and Superman's Song.
Yeah.
His voice becomes far more interesting when you can really hear it.
Well, it's interesting, and when we get to the song, like, why was that such a huge hit? And you're sort of like, well, I love the one-hit wonders of the 90s. The like, sort of like, what this song was. This is the only thing they did that, like, really, for whatever reason, connected with people, and it got so much play. I mean, the video was huge.
It's a well-written song.
Yeah, it's an odd song though. Like, there's nothing else quite like it in pop culture.
Lyrically, he's doing this sort of ramble-on storytelling. He's not rhyming. It's not written like a song. Once there was this kid whose parents made him come directly home right after school.
Yeah.
And he's just telling the story, but the chord progression is interesting. And there's a nice melody that counter melody underneath the singing that goes.
And it's also, if I wanted to do the analysis of 90s culture, it's about outcasts and it's about accepting outcasts, and that was a big theme.
There's nothing like that on this record either, though.
No.
There's nothing that says, "Oh, this is coming."
Yeah. Okay, let's move on.
Here we go, baby.
So this next album is called Flyin the Flannel, which is actually a perfect name for a 90s album. This album, Flyin the Flannel, is the fourth album by a band called Firehose, which is a band that's come up before in the podcast, John, because you've described to me not only playing with them, but seeing them play the Slack Motherfucker song. You saw them.
That was the first time I ever heard a Superchunk song.
They were playing a Superchunk cover, right?
Right.
So I didn't realize that Firehose is sort of just like or similar to the whole Mother Love Bone thing. A lead singer dies and a band is reconstituted. And this was the Minutemen, who are a legendary punk band. D. Boone was their singer. Yep. I just read, and it's in this book. I've recommended this book before. It's called Under the Big Black Sun, A Personal History of LA Punk. What's cool about this is it's just like, it's not one author. It's like a lot of people giving their histories. There's a chapter in here by Mike Watt, who's the bassist of Minutemen, and he talks about creating Minutemen and their whole run, and then D. Boone dying, and the creation of Firehose. And God, it's so sad to read. It's so fucking, because it's very clear that Mike Watt is still fucked up by the death of D. Boone.
Yeah.
But
they were devastated.
Yeah.
They quit.
Yeah.
So the Minutemen are the second band on SST Records.
Yeah.
Which is Black Flag's label, legendary punk rock label out of Southern California. We talked about this, both Screaming Trees and Soundgarden, and I think Dinosaur Jr. They all made records on SST. So it's like this legendary post-punk record label, or punk and post-punk record label out of Southern California. The Minutemen are from San Pedro. They formed in 1979. The Minutemen were around. The Minutemen are a legendary punk rock band. Mike Watt is a legend in the underground in Southern California. And they have they have an album. Minutemen had an album. They're called Minutemen because all their songs are shorter than a minute. They have an album called Double Nickel on the Dime. That's 45 songs on it.
And just like Primus, they're probably most known in the popular imagination for a theme song to a TV show. Minutemen's song is the theme to Jackass.
I didn't even know that.
If you ever watch Jackass, it's got an iconic sort of opening that is a Minutemen song.
I didn't even know that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy. I remember listening to the Minutemen when I was a kid. They weren't one of my favorite bands. I didn't get them because even though their songs are a minute long, they're doing like funk and jazz and bluesy type stuff within that little. This is the beginning of
opening of Jackass.
No, I've never seen. I've just seen clips of Jackass. I never watched it.
Anyway, to me that's iconic because I was super into Jackass. But it was that TV show that made me realize who the Minutemen were.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well,
anyway,
good job, Johnny Knoxville.
I know, right?
D. Boone dies in a van accident, right? Like I think the day that their last album was coming out, and very much like Andrew Wood, but he didn't. It wasn't drugs; it was a van. So they quit.
Sad.
Hurley and Mike Watt quit, and they gave up. And Ed Crawford came out from Ohio and convinced them to start another band, and so they started doing Firehose. We played some shows with them. They were incredible. It was so fun to play with Firehose. That was one of those moments when I really did get to open for a band that was one of my heroes at the time,
Super
in that
cool.
moment, they were like a band that were heroes to us. I remember our bass player, his name's Jason Morgan, and he's in a really good local band called The Spires still. But he was our bass player back then. He was a very good bass player. And Mike Watt was standing on the side of the stage watching him and nodding his head, and he was shouting at him. Mike Watt speaks very strangely. I don't know if you heard, he makes up his own words and phrases, and he was going, "Pump it, Heaty. Pump it, Heaty." And Jason was so stoked that Mike Watt was digging what he was doing. We
cool.
also saw Mike Watt, no shit, in the middle of a song, Firehose. If you ever see Mike Watt, he's pulling the strings, and he's just in this, like, fugue state, just rocking out. And he breaks a string on his bass and keeps going like this. playing and rewound a fucking string on his bass
way.
in the middle of a song with barely missing a beat. True. It was incredible, man.
There's a famous clip of Stevie Ray Vaughan doing that.
Really?
Yeah. He just keeps shredding his solo, and you're like, how the fuck is this guy doing this?
The Minutemen, doing their thing. The Firehose continues that tradition of what the Minutemen did, but the Minutemen stayed firmly anchored in punk rock. Mm-hmm. Firehose moves out of that.
Yeah, this was a really revelatory listen.
It's not a punk rock album at all.
It's all over the place. It
jazz, funk, soul,
right,
bluegrass.
Every song is a different idea. In fact, that was.
Right.
I don't know if I would describe this as a weakness of the album, but it was a little jarring. It's almost like it doesn't fall together thematically for me, because I'm just sort of like, it's just a collection of songs with a creative idea or several creative ideas present in each song. Like, I was just sort of like blown away by, what this album sounded to me like, and I wondered what you think of this. It reminded me a lot of Camper Van Beethoven.
Oh, great, yeah.
A sort of really creative songs, really different sort of vision of what songs even are. It was fun to listen to.
You know how I would
smart people, clearly smart people.
Well, I would connect them to Camper Van Beethoven for sure, in that they welcomed all their ideas. They weren't afraid to try any idea. I actually think song for song, Firehose is maybe a better band than Camper. I love Camper Van Beethoven. But like on the Camper Van Beethoven album, there's a lot of experimental Zappa-esque, funny, goofy stuff. Whereas I think every song on this record is a good song. This record is like a family. And each song is a child with a different personality.
Right, yeah.
They're so interesting. And I think they share DNA. Not a sound, but DNA with Fugazi and Bad Brains.
Totally.
With this crazy energy and then these forays into interesting.
Well, I feel like with a lot of these rock bands we're talking about, and I say rock in a very broad category, it's like we're hearing variations of types of guys. You know what I mean? Like, and when I mean types of guys, I mean, I use the word sensibility, but it's a sort of position. It's a sort of like attitude. It's a way of being, and it feels like I know exactly what you're talking about when you say Fugazi alongside of Firehose, because there's a certain sort of set of ideas and ways of being. They're smart, they're sardonic, they're angry, but they're able to channel their anger into something beyond just like a screamo type thing.
Does Ed from Ohio strike you as angry?
Not in the most overt way, but you can hear underlying it. When I say anger, I mean a sort of, there is, when you're talking about underground people and subversive people and people that are in the punk scene or whatever, I think they're always angry in this in the sense of like, and I put that with myself. There's an anger that's always latent, that is a revulsion with the way society is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not always. I'm not always angry, literally punching the wall.
I see what you mean.
But there's there's
a dissatisfaction with what is.
Yeah.
Although I think of you less angry and more of just a cunt.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Which is its own type of guy. Yes.
Speaking of types of guys, there is no way in my little world, there's no way to overestimate how influential Firehose was in telling us you can experiment with anything.
That's really interesting, considering I don't think a lot of people know who Firehose are. Like, if you're like, hey, name 20 bands from the 90s, no one's going to fucking put Firehose on there.
If you weren't from Southern California, you didn't know who the fuck they were. They're a San Pedro band, right? Now, I shouldn't say that. They were probably known in the underground around the country, and people would go see them. But they were, they played the Ventura Theater when we opened for them. They were playing little clubs.
But reading about them, big critics like Pitchfork and stuff like that, they all like have them now on lists of like most influential alternative and indie, like that sort of world.
Mike Watt and George Hurley, no fucking question. Anybody out there on the internet doesn't agree with me, go fuck yourself. Have to be considered among, if not the greatest rhythm section in punk rock and alternative music in the 80s. Okay, they were just unstoppable together. And Mike Watt is so admired. His first solo album after Firehose stopped. It's called gosh, what was it called? It was called, I think I wrote it down. His first solo album, it's damn it, I'm not going to remember, but he had Eddie Vedder.
Ball Hog or Tugboat?
Ball Hog or Tugboat, that's it. Thank you. He had Eddie Vedder, Dave Grohl, Flea, Evan Dando of the Lemonheads, Mike D of the Beastie Boys. They were all on his record.
Cool.
He was so admired among musicians.
Yeah.
So he's another one of those bands. There's a lot of these back then. There's a lot of them in Seattle. Mudhoney's a good example of this. They were never popular on the radio. They weren't commercially successful, maybe, Firehose. But if you were in music in Seattle in 1991, you knew who Mudhoney was.
Right.
Same thing. If you grew up in Southern California, you knew who Firehose was, for sure.
Well, they fall into that category that you talked about with Soul Asylum, where it was sort of, there was some irony about the fact that Soul Asylum had that big hit, Runaway Train, when if they hadn't had that big hit, they might have had a different status. You know, the status like, oh, nobody knows them still.
Right.
But if you do know them, you understand how influential and big they are.
For sure.
And would anyone want Firehose to be top of the pops on Dick Clark or whatever that is?
That's not what they're for. No,
you know what I mean?
No. And
it would be weird to see Firehose on Total Request Live with Carson Daly. You know what I mean? It's just not their world.
Yeah, no,
there's some authenticity or cred you get for being, especially in the punk underground thing, staying underground.
Look, this, I want to say, if this sounds like an insult to mainstream society, it absolutely is.
Right.
The world wouldn't know what to do with Firehose. They wouldn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
They're such interesting characters. Just go listen to Mike Watt talk sometime. He sings, by the way. And there's a song, Walkin' the Cow.
Yes.
A Daniel Johnston song.
I really enjoyed that. I noticed that. Yes.
And the way they play it, dude, it sounds like the music sounds like it could be an outtake from Some Girls by the Stones. You know? It's like this classic rock groove from the 70s. And then he's singing, I'm walking. It's about walking the cow. But just such an interesting, it's like Tom Waits meets, who's the guy that played with the Stones? Shit, I can't remember. But just so it's very soulful music. And then there's a couple songs that are like Tulin, Ed is Ed's a crooner, man. He's got such a nice voice. Tulin. Yeah. He got a nice vibrato and he holds the note.
Every song was a surprise to me.
So good.
Because when one song ended, I could honestly say I had no idea what was going to come next. Whereas with Sepultura, I knew that the next song was going to be a pulverizing metal song about the devil. You know what I mean? And that's fine. You get what you ask for. But with Firehose, it's for people that are looking for something a little bit different. I like their, again, literary sensibility. They're making references to Beat Generation writers and stuff like that.
There was such a cool band, man.
Yeah.
Timeless too. I was telling you and Claudia, your wife, right before the show today. This is one of those records. It's like Soul Asylum and the Horse They Rode In on.
Yeah. This
record, Flyin the Flannel, and by the way, this is a San Pedro band wearing flannel long before there was a Seattle scene.
Right.
But this record, I haven't listened to this record in 25 years. And it was such a joy to listen to it again. I was just like, man, it's lost nothing. It totally holds up. I loved it. I enjoyed it so much. It was so fun. And by the way, my standout song, I have two of them, either Epoxy, for example, or Anti-Misogyny Maneuver.
Yes.
But listen to the whole record.
Yeah. So good.
And I just want to say one more thing. I'm really getting concerned. I think that you're going to be very sorry for how much disrespect you've shown Satan on this show on a consistent basis.
Yeah, he's kind of, Satan is sort of like the shadow most influential 90s figure. Yeah. Shout out to Satan. Okay, so one more band, and then we have a couple of other albums that are honorable mentions that we want to mention that came out this month. But before we get to them, let's think about this other huge album that came out in April '91. It's called Blue Lines. It's the debut studio album by an electronic group that's often categorized as trip hop, and we can talk about that. But they're called Massive Attack, and they're hugely influential. I don't know how familiar you are or were with Massive Attack.
Not
heard them
at
all.
all.
Yeah.
This is sorry. Go ahead.
So this is stuff that I've listened to a lot. I really love this genre. And this album was familiar to me, although it's not my favorite Massive Attack album.
Oh,
I
really?
think there's stuff that comes later that I like even more. But I really enjoyed this, and Claudia and I were listening to it this morning. We talked a lot about it because it sounds so 90s to me in terms of like a sound that's going to become really dominant in the mainstream and like a mainstream underground dance sort of world, the trip hop thing. But what is cool about this album, what I think what it connected for me was you had talked about when we listened to that Everything But the Girl album.
Yeah.
That sort of like jazz sort of thing that's going on in like a lot of British music.
Yeah.
Like Sade is one example, but there are lots of others. It feels like Massive Attack is sort of taking that jazz, funk, R&B thing and melding it with hip hop and electronic music and making something totally unique that's going to become a dominant sound in the 90s. I enjoyed this. What did you think of Massive Attack? It doesn't seem like it's your genre.
It's not. I wasn't doing a lot of dancing in 1991.
Yeah, right.
So I was aware of them by name only. I never listened to this music, and I wouldn't have been that interested in it. And I'll tell you, interestingly, why that some of that lingers for me. Listening to this, the way I equate it to it doesn't sound 90s to me at all, because to me the 90s was all about rock bands.
Yeah.
But it is very 90s. You're right.
Uh-huh.
But what I equate it to, I noticed I enjoyed it more as it went on. As the record went on, the first 2 or 3 songs on the record, I found myself drifting off and not paying attention. It didn't hold my attention because of these repetitive grooves. And it's a precursor to my least favorite thing about modern music. And this is taste, whatever you're into, is that this is mostly not played, but assembled. It's drum beats.
Oh, yeah.
It's drum beats and
this is
samples.
Intricately assembled.
It's
the
assembled.
digital effects on this album are, this is entering into a genre that you might not like. That's like the laptop kids in the 90s.
It's just
that are
my
gonna
taste.
be mixing and making effects, and it's going to have a huge effect. To me, I think that, and we'll get to this, but there's ironies and contradictions to all of it. But when I think about electronic music and music that's assembled, as you say, there are people that do it really well.
Yeah, that's true.
And then there's like a whole giant subset of people who do it in a really shitty way.
A very generic.
Yeah. In other words, it kind of made making music too easy in some ways. That you can just
disposable.
Like loop a beat and then put effects on it and stuff like that.
I mean, I feel like music is so easy to make now that it's very disposable.
Yeah, it's almost like, AI makes it now. Right.
So these guys are good at it.
Yeah.
And
they have a lot of vocalists, like the
good vocalists,
right? It's all different kind of, and even there's a groove to this album that, like, even when it's rap, like there's some rap going on here, it's like laid back, everything is what I like about this album is, and maybe this is what you're responding to in drifting off, it's atmospheric.
It's very
it's very deeply textured,
and it's repetitive hypnotic groove. It's
right.
Like, there's not a bridge. There's not a breakdown chorus. There's nothing. It just
this is like
repetitive.
Do you know like Nightmares on Wax? Have you heard of them? They're going to put out a lot of albums that are like this in the 90s that are sort of their album that's a huge hit is called Smoker's Delight, and it's very like on the surface that this is music that you like smoke a big joint to and sort of just chill to. Like, it's chill music. One of the things I read about this album, Blue Lines, which is like a celebrated album by a lot of people because it's so influential. But Chuck Palahniuk, the writer, the guy that wrote Fight Club and a million other, he says he writes to this album.
Oh, wow.
In the sense that he puts it on and has it playing in the background while he's writing. And I thought, like, well, that kind of describes a little bit of what's going on with it. It's an atmosphere.
Maybe that's what it was doing to me.
Yeah.
I was not focusing on the music. I was spacing out a little bit. And maybe that's the idea.
Maybe you should have written a novel about guys beating each other up.
I started work on my novel about cunts.
That's what it's called.
Yeah, cunts. I thought the artistry was good.
Yeah.
It's well designed. Sharon Nelson's a cool singer.
Yeah.
She's a good singer, very cool, great vibe. And yeah, it's laid back. There's a type of party this music would be played at.
Yeah.
And I would not have been invited to that party in the 90s. You know what I mean? But apparently this is the first album it's like credited with creating the trip hop sound.
Well, yeah. I mean, did you ever listen to like Portishead? They're gonna be huge in the '90s too.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, a whole bunch of others, like DJ Shadow. I mean, there's gonna be a bunch of people that are building on this sound.
Really?
Yeah. And I think what's for the people that are sort of marking what's going to happen in the '90s, why this album Blue Lines is important is that it sort of took hip hop production and put it more into an artful world than had been before. Like hip hop production was often considered, I know there are exceptions, but hip hop production was often just considered like the vehicle for the rapping.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it was just like, okay, get some beats down. So
right.
here now we're doing like massively produced beats that are sort of like almost bridging into other genres and are artful in their own, for their own sort of thing. And I think that's what's important about this album, why I like it.
There's a song called Daydreaming that it's very topical. They referenced Budokan, the famous concert venue in the East. Maggie Thatcher. The reference to the Beatles, the love you make is the love you take. Fiddler on the Roof. Like it was fun. I enjoyed listening to him bring all these different cultural components into this rap. That was clever. And there's a song called 5 Man Army, my standout song on the record. Very dub influenced.
Yes.
Reminded me of something on Sandinista, the Clash album. It's like it's got that guitar bit in it, and I was drawn to that. Like
it's a
Jamaican.
It's definitely I think drawing on different worlds than both of us are used to listening to, honestly. But I partly think that Massive Attack became so popular because they reached guys like me who weren't necessarily hip hop heads or weren't necessarily into dance music, but did smoke a lot of weed and like to chill out and sort of were interested in that world. And they sort of, I think they brought this to a wider audience. I think Massive Attack is probably known for that more than anything. Is they got huge.
I'm sure that's
and they
true.
Still are huge.
Yeah.
And they're very like left wing too. They're like big political people, and they still are. They've been doing a lot of stuff for like Gaza, Israel, like in that war and everything like that.
I didn't know that about them, but
they're still influential is what I'm saying.
To go back to, for me, for my personal taste, listening to a record like this and feeling that this is assembled versus played. Yes. I like music that's played. I've been a musician my whole life, and I like music that's played by people, and I like to hear people play, and I like to hear people create with instruments, and I'm just not drawn usually to electronic music. I can understand and appreciate it. And at the end of this record, this song came on, and I had a different kind of attention than I had the whole record. I went, ooh, what's that? And I sat forward like, it was the first song on the Lenny Kravitz album.
Yeah,
I didn't know it switched.
That's funny.
Now there's a
I know
playing.
exactly what happened, because for those of you listening, if you listen to our list on Spotify, they're sort of in this particular order, and sometimes the changeover from one album to the next can be quite jarring. You're sort of like, oh, it's definitely Crash Test Dummies now. I'm not listening to Violent Femmes anymore, whatever. But here, I know exactly what you're talking about, because that first track on the Lenny Kravitz album is pretty cool.
It's super cool.
It's I like when he does the acoustic stuff. So Blue Lines by Massive Attack, I like it more than John, but I think it's worth listening to. So our last two albums that we just want to mention, you already said it. Mama Said, the second studio album by Lenny Kravitz came out in April '91. Lenny Kravitz is another figure who's going to have a good '90s.
Yeah.
I was thinking that he has a song on here called Flowers for Zoe, which is about his baby daughter,
Zoe Kravitz,
who is now
a star. Yeah,
maybe arguably more famous than he
is.
And I thought, wow, a lot of time has gone by, but I also thought like he was huge in the '90s. He had a number of huge hits, and he's sort of an icon in his own way. Like he's undeniably got that sort of rock star vibe.
His mom was on the Jeffersons.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I texted you last night that I was enjoying this album, and you made fun of me for it. But what did you think of this album? I mean, we could just do a quick thing on these last
because
two.
it wasn't on our list and I was out of time, I didn't listen to the whole thing.
Me neither. Yeah.
But you know what I dig about this era of Lenny Kravitz? Like, Let Love Rules, his first record, came out in the '80s. He did the whole thing on a 4-track, and he played all the instruments. And some of this feels very much like that. But it's definitely a pop album. He's a pop writer.
Yeah,
he's so Beatles influenced. He unapologetically wears his Beatles influence on his sleeve. His chord progressions and harmonies and stuff are so Beatles-ish. But He has his own way of doing it. I think it's cool. I thought it was I only listened to a little bit of it. I thought it was super cool.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. And he's going to be even bigger as time goes on.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about Lenny more. And then the Simple Minds had a record come out this month too.
I don't know that band.
You know Simple Minds.
I don't.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't. You got a song for me?
You know Simple Minds.
Yeah.
Hey, hey, hey,
Oh,
hey.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's Simple Minds. Don't you forget about me.
Right. I didn't know that was them.
They had a lesser hit early in the 80s. I promised you a miracle.
They're like an 80s band, aren't they?
They are very much an 80s band. They had an album come out this month.
Okay.
Worth
mentioning. And one last one we want to mention is an album called 712 by a band called Shonen Knife. They're a Japanese rock trio. I think I've heard Shonen Knife before, but I'd never really understood who or what they were about. They're one of those really fun, weird Japanese pop bands doing something that's totally unique. And you mentioned them as important in part because Nirvana was into them.
Well, I don't know if that makes them important. But in the 90s...
Well, it connects them to something, I think.
Kurt Cobain was a fan and took them on the tour they went on in 91, right before Nevermind came out. He asked them to open up for them on the tour. And they were known back then. They were something like... They were something that the cool kids knew about.
Okay,
you know what
that
I mean?
Makes sense, yeah.
And I listened to this record. I never heard them. I knew who they were. I thought it was hilarious. It just sounded like these girls went, you know what we should do? Let's start a band. You play the drums, I'll play the guitar. And they just started doing it.
Yeah.
And it's super simple. They can't really play, but
it's kind of infectious.
But there's something creative about it. And
yeah.
I was laughing the whole time and I enjoyed it.
Well, I mean, what you just said is like the part of the punk ethos. You know, like, let's just fucking make a band. None of us know how to play, but let's just do it anyway. And actually, you're going to end up producing something compelling.
They just rip shit off, too. The first song has a sample from the drums from Don't Be Me Down by ELO.
Yeah.
And that song,
yeah.
And then, like, they have a song called Lazy Bone, and it's exactly Get Back by the Beatles. It's exactly it.
That's cool.
They did a cover of a song called Luck of the Irish on this record. Jeff McDonald of Red Cross, which is a very well-known American punk rock band, he sang the John Lennon parts, and the girl sings the Yoko Ono parts.
I like that All Music calls them thoroughly unpretentious, and like that's something cool about that.
Yeah,
you know,
that is true.
And like it's weird because I'm like, is that going to describe? Does that describe Nirvana too? Like there's something so affected about Nirvana, but at the same time, what hit about them was the rawness and the kind of like
for sure,
just the thorough unpretentiousness of it.
Yeah. We'll definitely be talking about that.
Well, we'll be getting there. So that wraps up April 91. And we have lots more to go this year. This year is a killer year. So thank you, John. I appreciate it.
Thanks, David.
We'll talk soon.